This is Derek Chamblee. It's May 22nd, 2016, and I'm at the John F. Germany Library, and this is the first edition of Cybercyrcletyme. This is a day in history that changed the world. And that date, June 22nd, 1941. Google Site 420.20 hindsight. Google DIXON. Google DIXON. Fiction Nixon. Chronicles of a CROOK. We're going to be using as references the Historic Time magazines of June 23rd, 1941, and also as references vital speeches of the day, two speeches from June 22nd, 1941. One by Winston Churchill, the other by ADOLF. And before that, I'll be playing NIXON, Fiction Nixon, Chronicles of the book. 22nd, 1941. We're going to go first to the June 23rd issue, Time magazine, Time and Life Papers. June 23rd, 1941. And the Time magazine is a weekly magazine. And so on the 22nd of June, 1941, their printed issue of June 23rd had already gone to print and was essentially reporting on the week before, June 22nd, 1941. And in the foreign news section on page 23, in the Time magazine of June 23rd, 1941, foreign news, Germany, Russia, and the headline is Something Wrong with a Question Mark. The silent war of nerves being waged between two masters of the nerve technique. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin last week reached a new climax. Suddenly, midweek world capitals buzzed with news and speculation. The London Daily Mail burst out in a banner headline. Germans mass against Stalin. The Daily Telegraph and Morning Post, 130 Nazi divisions on Soviet border. And so, this is the report. This is the report published in Time magazine on June 23rd, 1941. By the time of the next issue, June 30th, 1941 issue. The events of June 22nd, 1941 had already taken place, so they're being reported through this issue of Time magazine. But before we get to that, let's examine the speech of Winston Churchill on that date, June 22nd, 1941. Actually, before we do that, let's examine the speech first of Adolf Hitler on that date, June 22nd, 1941. Out of Vital Speeches of the Day, page 548. It's entitled The Safeguarding of Europe. Subtitle, It is Necessary for Us to Destroy Bolshevism by Adolf Hitler. Rights of Germany. Proclamation is issued in Berlin, June 22nd, 1941. And we'll go into the body of the speech. This is a speech by Adolf Hitler on that day. As early as 1936, Prime Minister Churchill, according to statements by the American General Wood before a committee of the American House of Representatives, declared Germany was once again becoming too powerful and must therefore be destroyed. And Hitler goes on to speak about the history of exactly how he had come to this particular date in time, and basically it seems to be a justification for his invasion of the Soviet Union. He ends his speech quite interesting. He's saying, I therefore decided today again to lay the fate and future of the German Reich on our people in the hands of our soldiers. May God help us, especially in this fight. So Adolf Hitler is calling on God to help Germany in this fight. Now, the same day, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, makes a speech. And the title and vital speeches of the day is The New War. And Prime Minister of Great Britain, Winston Churchill, is broadcasting this speech from London, June 22nd, 1941. It's entitled The Invasion of Russia. At 4 o'clock this morning, Hitler attacked and invaded Russia. All his usual formalities of recruiting were observed with scrupulous technique. A non-aggression treaty had been solemnly signed and was enforced between the two countries. No complaint had been made by Germany of its non-fulfillment. Under its form of false confidence, the German army grew up in midstream along a line which stretched from the White Sea to the Black Sea, and their air fleets and armored divisions slowly and methodically took up their station. And Winston Churchill goes on, later in the body of the speech. We have but one aim and one single, irrevocable purpose. We are resolved to destroy Hitler and every vestige of the Nazi regime. From this, nothing will turn us, nothing. We will never parley. We will never negotiate with Hitler or any of his gang. We shall fight him by land. We shall fight him by sea. We shall fight him in the air until, with God's help, we have rid the earth of his shadow and liberated its people from his yoke. And Winston Churchill goes on toward the very end of his speech that day, June 22nd, 1941. His invasion of Russia is no more than a prelude to an attempted invasion of the British Isles. He hopes, no doubt, that all this may be accomplished before the winter comes and that he can overwhelm Great Britain before the fleets and air power of the United States will intervene. He hopes that he may once again repeat upon a greater scale than ever before that process of destroying his enemies one, by which he has so long thrived and prospered, and that then the scene will be clear for the final act without which all his conquest would be in vain, namely, the subjugation of the Western Hemisphere to his will and to his system. And that's Winston Churchill on the same day. Interesting, they're both calling on God for help, Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. Now, to Time magazine. In the June 30th issue of Time magazine, reporting on the events of the week before, under the heading of National Affairs, the Presidency, subheading War of the Dinosaurs. It was 9:30 in the morning. Germany had declared war on Russia. President Roosevelt, in his second-floor study in the White House, faced the strangest and perhaps the most momentous turn of World War II. This is quoting Time magazine's editors, writers. It was something which he had not dared hope for. It might turn out to be the luckiest military break for the U.S. outside of an outright defeat for Germany in battle that the president could have hoped for. And later in the article, reporting on the statement that was issued by the Secretary of State, President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration. Later in the Times magazine article, perhaps Franklin Roosevelt smiled inwardly at that example of State Department mentality, a mentality which might have been shocked by John Dillinger's 10th bank robbery, but he approved it. The statement was issued by Undersecretary of State Wells, W-E-L-L-E-S, and the report in Time magazine picks up his statement. If any further proof could conceivably be required of the real purposes and projects of the present leaders of Germany for world domination, it is now furnished by Hitler's treacherous attack upon Soviet Russia. To the leaders of the German Reich, sworn engagements to refrain from hostile acts against other countries are but a symbol of deceit. To the present German government, the very meaning of the word honor is unknown. And the statement continues, the President has declared that the United States maintains that freedom to worship God as their consciences dictate is the great and fundamental right of all people. This right has been denied to their peoples by both the Nazis and the Soviet governments. Any defense against Hitlerism, any rallying of the forces opposing Hitlerism, from whatever source these forces may spring, will hasten the eventual downfall of the present German leaders and will therefore redound to the benefit of our own defense and security, unquote. The President okayed it at noon. Sumner Welles read the statement to newsmen in the State Department. The usually impassive correspondent of the German News Bureau frowned as he made his note. The correspondent of the official Soviet agency frowned at the phrases that put communism and Nazism in the same class. The U.S. newsman checked off the phrases applied to Nazi Germany and its ways: treacherous, quote, treacherous, dishonorable, deceitful, hostile, murderous, brutal, desperate, unquote, when the U.S. could officially use such terms as were now applied to the Nazis. The United States of America was certainly at war. This is June 22nd, 1941, prior to December 7th, 1941, a date that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said will live in infamy. December 7th, 1941. This is June 22nd, 1941, when the United States of America was not yet officially at war with Adolf Hitler, Nazi Germany, or Japan. This is June 22nd, 1941, a duel of orders from Adolf Hitler, from Berlin on that day, to Winston Churchill from London on that day, and as the time difference, the statement from the Undersecretary of State, Sumner Welles, for the United States of America, representing President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's stand on June 22nd, 1941. And we've gone back in the Cybercyrcletyme, Cybercyrcletyme, with the great use of John F. Germany Library in downtown Tampa, Florida, and Time Magazine, their classic issues from June 23rd, 1941 and June 30th, 1941, and also the vital speeches of our day, the speeches that were published from that day of Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. I hope that you've enjoyed this study and use of resources from the John F. Germany Library on a day that changed the world in time, Cybercyrcletyme. I'm Derek Chamblee. Thank you very much.